So if you'd like to start the recording, and which I think you have, and call the roll, that would be great.
Miranda, do you need me to start the video, seeing as I was the first one into the meeting, or are you able to do that?
I didn't hear what you asked.
Oh, sorry. Do you need me to start the video? Because
mean the
I was the first
recording?
one in the meeting?
Are you talking about the recording?
The video on here on WebEx.
I'm not sure what video you're referring to.
The video recording of the meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm already recording.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's showing start video on my side. I apologize. All right.
Start videos for your camera.
Oh, what do you know? Learn something every day. Chair, if you're ready, I'm ready to go. Netherland
let's-
Planning Commission meeting is called to order on August 25th, 2021 at 7:07 p.m.
Thank you. Could you take the roll, please?
Sure. Chair Williams,
Here.
Commissioner Blakemore. Here. Commissioner Giblin,
Here.
Commissioner Glasser,
Here.
Commissioner Herring,
Here.
Commissioner Perret.
Here.
Do we have a Vice Chair Reese yet? Perhaps not yet. Trustee Taylor?
Here.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Cynthia. First item up is the approval of our minutes from July 28th. Has everyone had a chance to review them? And if you have any comments, please make them now. If not, I will assume that they are good, and we would need a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I make a motion to approve the minutes. This is Linda.
Okay.
And this is Karen. I will second.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call vote down the list. Chair Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Blakemore, Commissioner Giblin,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasser,
Yes.
Commissioner Herring,
Yes.
Commissioner Perret, I think you were absent. Did you want to abstain? Okay. Okay. Did we get a Vice Chair Reese yet? Not yet. And Trustee Taylor?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
So Cynthia, if Jim is not here, does he get an automatic abstention?
Well, I'm usually on the vote record. I'm just crossing through someone's name if they're not attending, so there's no vote that they're taking. And then
Okay.
I note their absence up above on the top bar of it to note they were absent, or if they arrive later, then I'll note the time that they arrive at the meeting if they were there. So that way it makes sense in case they came, 15 minutes into the meeting and they're voting later, then it makes sense.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Do we have anybody that has any public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda? Any members of the public here? Okay, if not, I will go ahead and close the public comment on non-agenda items, and we'll move into discussion items. We do not have any action items this evening. And the first discussion item is a presentation and discussion on the 2018 building code. Who is going to lead this? Will this be Miranda?
Yes, sorry, I realized I didn't send that to you, Chair Williams, but it is me. So in the packet is the 2018 building code presentation. I know we've spoken with planning commissioners previously about this, but this is kind of the final tied together presentation, which outlines all of the changes that would occur with the 2018 code, as well as some amendments that we're recommending specific to fire and energy code. And tonight we're just looking for kind of that final round of feedback. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns that we should take into consideration as we move forward with the adoption of the 2018 building code.
Okay, we don't need to walk through this whole presentation, do we?
No, I mean, we figured we didn't like make a PowerPoint or a video because we figured all the information that are on the slides themselves. So I was not planning to walk through the presentation unless that's a desire, but it's probably about an hour to an hour and a half worth of information.
Okay, I think we don't need to do that, but if you would like to highlight anything in particular that perhaps town staff might be concerned about, or and then we'll do the same thing with the commissioners if there's anybody who has some concerns with anything in the presentation. That would be
Yeah,
helpful.
sure. So, sorry, let me scroll on you. I think it's just the code amendments, and we brought this, I believe, before. So the code amendments we're considering or asking for consideration is residential fire suppression systems for new buildings, making sure that there's an exterior fire resistant required defensible space around a building. And then this is not, we'd really have to have a micro distillery come up, but there is enhanced code about the way spirits and wines are distilled spirits and wines are handled. So that's one. And then the other is in regards to energy, and this is very specific to new builds only, that we would adopt the energy rating index that Boulder County uses, where in essence, based on the square footage of the new build, there would be an ERI target, which is kind of a number that you would have to meet using a multitude of different energy efficient options. So here we've got ceilings, roofs, having a solar system, HVAC systems that are considered energy efficient. You would get like a score for every energy efficient item you added in, and then your final score just needs to reach whatever that ERI target is based on your square footage of your home. So it is kind of a tiered scale, which we wrote here. So the larger the home, the more energy efficient it would need to be. So that's another recommendation of ours. We would allow discretion, though, of the building official to work with property developers to come up with really creative ways in which they could meet energy conservation. So they're not necessarily picking from like a box of like, I pick these items. They could provide a slew of different options for the ways in which they feel they're meeting those ERI targets. Otherwise, building code updates are pretty standard. They're usually related to safety or efficiency of the building. So everything else in the code itself, just kind of black and white, pretty dry updates. These are just the two that would be Netherlands specific that we're asking the board to consider. Thank
you. Miranda, do you want to say something about the schedule of this with respect to the Board of Trustees?
Mike, I don't know if I put my schedule in here. So the plan is to go before the Board of Trustees and to bring it back to them next month for them to get the feedback on what we learned from our outreach. And our outreach includes not only boards and commissions, but the public, and doing really directed conversations with contractors. And so we would share with them next month. The goal would be to bring forward an ordinance for review in October, adopt that ordinance ideally in November so that it could go into effect in our municipal code starting January 1st. So all builds in 2022 would have to adhere to 2018 building code.
And that would be effective next year?
Yeah, so so we'd have an adoption. The ordinance goes into effect 30 days after publication. So we need it to be adopted by December, before December starts, so that we could do it effective January 1st. And that would be in the ordinance that would be the start date is 1/1/2022.
Okay. And let's see. Does anyone, any of the commissioners have any questions before I open it to the public for comment?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Giblin. One question I just have up front is there some kind of not grace period, but like period of time after January 1st where, where this code, until this code is fully enforced, or is it just January 1st? I mean, I'm kind of not used to where I've seen nationally and even in the state, usually there's some kind of, it's a it's a compliance date that comes on, and then sometime later it becomes mandatory to give the local builders time to, and the local residents time to adjust to this change. And that it's all being kind of put out there for people to comment on and stuff like that. It's still, you know, it hasn't really kicked in as exactly what would happen. So I'm just kind of curious if there's some kind of grace period. And then also, is it based on permit date or completion date? What's the, how
It
do
would
you
be
guys
based
do it?
on, yeah, let me do the later. It would be based on permit date. So any permit pulled after January 1st, 2022, but that would be the execution date. And I think we're looking at kind of these next 3 months as the time to really help, make sure people are understanding that if the board agrees to move forward next month, that we're full steam ahead, where any permit pulled in 2022 would have to adhere to this. It's hard to talk about like how will 18 impact you in your specific project, because we don't know until we're like in the midst of your project. So of course we'd be happy to meet with contractors to at least get them oriented to those. Now I will tell you, most contractors are already familiar of 2018 building code and already build to such. So it's not anything new to them. Most like one stops, nothing changed for them under the 2018 building code. So I would say the only people who would really need to be familiar are those making major renovations to their home and or new builds. And from the conversation we've had with about 10 contractors so far, they well understand the 2018 building code.
Okay, but we're bumping up from 2012. There are changes, and is this how it happened last time you guys went to a higher code? You just kind of pick a date and that's when it starts, and there's no real
So it'd be
grace
for like
period?
any ordinance. Yeah, any ordinance, if we adopted it, it goes into effect 30 days after publication. So my assumption, none of us were here, is that at that time for 2012 code, or maybe Cynthia, you were, that went into effect 30 days after that ordinance was adopted. Whereas in this case, instead of doing it that way, we're saying even if it was adopted mid-November, we won't have it go into effect until January 1, 2022.
Okay, I'm just saying, I mean, I work with this, with municipalities, states, etc., around the country who this is not the norm. Usually there's some kind of a period of time for all those people, other than the 10 contractors who will get caught, surprised by some of these changes. Sprinkler systems being a big one, and some of the energy stuff.
And we can take that back to the Board of Trustees to see if there's a desire to stagger it that way instead, and happy to do so if that's the desire of the board to do the kind of soft launch, hard launch type thing. I think really our goal though is, and a part of that outreach plan was to educate everyone to this is really coming. The board's already expressed an interest in wanting to move to 18, and so using this time to try to educate everyone. And although we've had significant conversations with local contractors, we did send out this PowerPoint to everyone who has a business license in town, which is just it's around 60 contractors. So if anyone who's ever pulled a permit here would be aware that we are moving forward, and we welcomed their feedback. I definitely hear you, Commissioner Giblin, and happy to bring that feedback back to the Board of Trustees. It's just, that was kind of the way we thought we would structure this, is to try to give ample amount of time for them to know this change is coming.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think it's been out there, but some people I've talked to, homeowners and stuff, people thinking about projects, like they have no clue that this is all about to happen. I mentioned it to them, and they're definitely, much as it's out there, it's not getting out there. So that's more
Sure.
what talking about.
So Miranda, do we understand correctly that you are still soliciting comments through September or until the draft ordinance? And I assume that will be on our next meeting. Is that correct?
So I think at this point, though, we would just be bringing the draft ordinance to the Board of Trustees because it's really just acknowledging the adoption of the 2018 building code. Now, if that's a desire of the Planning Commission, we'd be happy to bring it back to you, but that wouldn't be until probably potentially September, maybe October. But happy to start here if that's an interest.
Well, I just want to make sure that comments such as Billy's are included either separately or as part of the draft ordinance. I'm not sure what's the best way to do that.
So what will happen is I will bring to the Board of Trustees on September 7th the comments, and Billy's will be included in that there's a desire to have, while 1/1 would be the effective date, there's a desire to have a grace period to get people oriented to what 2018 building code means before there's kind of that hard execution date. And that'll be in the aim of all the feedback received so far. Billy will incorporate that. And then, of course, Commissioner Giblin is more than welcome to come to the board meeting and speak verbally to that comment even further if he desires to.
Okay. So we will not see this again. Is that correct?
No, I mean, but again, if there's a desire of the Planning Commission to want to see the ordinance to weigh in, I'm happy to bring it back to the Planning Commission. I think I would just be looking to you, Chair Williams, and the board to decide, or the commission to decide if that's an interest.
Right. Yeah, my thought was that if it goes before the Board of Trustees in October, and I'm assuming that's the first meeting in October, then it might be, we'll see if there's any desire by Planning Commission members to see the draft, at least as a very quick review in the next packet. So if anyone has any interest to do that, please bring that up this evening.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, personally.
Okay. Any other questions from Planning Commission members at this point?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Glasser.
Yes.
And I have a question on the impact of this would basically be on new build, and what would be the impact on remodel?
There, in terms of the two amendments, we're only looking to apply those to new builds regarding energy efficiency and the fire components. Otherwise, yes, 2018 building code in its entirety would be specific to the rebuild, depending on what it is and if it falls within any changes related to code. And I guess some of the things I could think about is like insulation, the length of installation or the size of it, and there's some changes regarding like windows. Those would have to take into consideration. But having to become, meeting your ERI rating for energy efficiency would not be an expectation of any sort of remodel.
Okay, thank you.
You
Any
sure
other
about
questions?
that? Actually, I thought that, this is Commissioner Gilman, I thought that even a remodel would have to have that kind of performance path, where they look, the ERI, where they look at it and it's modeled to, with all the components to show how it scores. And I could be wrong, but I thought that did apply to remodels.
So it's actually, because this is an amendment, the Sustainability Advisory Board is the one bringing forward this amendment, and it is their desire to only apply that to new builds at this time.
Okay.
And
So
the code would indicate that. That could change in the future, but their recommendation at this time is just to do it only for new builds.
okay, because I remember at a BOT meeting, like they were talking about, I remember, Jonathan, different BOT members, like if with regards to remodels and specifically like water sprinkler systems, like they were trying to say what percentage of the total conditioned floor, what percentage of the total square footage of the house you know, at what point does it kick in these requirements versus if it's a smaller percentage, they wouldn't apply, but above you know, I'm going to say 40%. That's not the number, but say they pick a number 30%, 40% of the total square footage, like above that number, then these would kick in. So did they change
Right.
that?
Yeah, so it actually, they asked town staff to look into that further, and upon meeting with Safe Built, you know, a threshold like that is impossible. You know, every project is just so different, and how would we feasibly determine, like, for example, what is 40%? I mean, it's just, it leaves too much to be, you know, individually assessed, and so the feeling was, we're not ready for that, nor do we have really the person power for that to be diving into every permit to figure out, like, what's the 40%. And that it seemed most appropriate to just start with new builds, and then maybe in future years, not anytime soon, come back and talk about that threshold. But thresholds to adhere to code is not common, is what Safe Built said. And it's just easier to say kind of this like all or none type mentality. And so the feeling among staff was only new builds.
Okay, cool. That's great. And I guess I should say something positive, so I'm just not whining about everything. I do like the tiered scale of increasing the score based on square footage, because the modeling that's used tends to favor larger square footages, larger volumes. So basically, a larger home with a larger home tends to, you know, do better on those scales automatically. So I like the idea of increasing the HERS score, which, just so everyone knows, actually means decreasing the HERS score. Increasing the rigor is that it's like golf, the lower the better. So the tiered scale, hopefully what it's supposed to actually mean is it decreases the HERS score threshold as buildings get larger. And if that's indeed what I think it's supposed to mean, then I applaud that we're doing that.
Yes, that is the intention. And so Boulder County has a very rigorous system, and it's a whole workflow, and we'll try to look at something similar. But it was really important for us to put in that discretion of the building official, because, you know, everyone's economic scales are different and what they can and cannot afford. Not everyone can put on a solar system, and we understand that. And so wanting to be able to work with the new homeowner to be creative and how they meet that score. And it's not just like this box where you pick, if they're able to prove the sustainable feature of whatever that item is, we're willing to take it into consideration for that HERS score.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? We'll come back and do a final discussion.
This is Commissioner Blakemore.
Karen, could you speak up?
Sure. Commissioner Blakemore, and on page 30, the last bullet under code amendments says enhanced code related to micro distilleries. And maybe I missed this. I was having trouble with my sound. But is that a Boulder County standard, and what is that all about?
Yeah, it is a Boulder County standard, and currently it doesn't really apply to Nederland because we don't have any distilleries. But distilleries have a significant fire danger component just because of the way in which they are distilling that alcohol. And so the enhanced codes really just put in more strict guidelines for how in which they will complete the process of distilling the spirits or wines. So, you know, like if we had, say, Gold Dirt here, they would have to adhere to micro distillery codes, which come out of Boulder County. And I'm happy to send more information if you'd like. We didn't get into detail on the slide just because it is not something we currently face, but that is a desire of the fire department, is to hold them to Boulder County standards on assessing the fire risk and treating their processes in a way in which it reduces fire danger.
Oh, no, I don't need any more information. That's enough for me on that particular item. Then I was wondering if I see that we all the amendments are from Boulder County's standard. And so I'm wondering if that brings us into 100% alignment with the functionality in the Boulder County building code.
Not quite, because actually Boulder County is going to move to 2021. So we'll still be behind them. It does, though, from a fire standpoint, it does align us very well with what their standards are. Energy efficiency, again, they do require for a variety of different building codes to reach the HERS score. So not a complete mirroring there either, but it does start to push us in that direction of aligning in those two areas.
Okay, and then I just have one suggestion, and that is I see the estimated costs on the last couple pages, last 3-4 pages. I'm wondering if it would be useful to have an estimated total cost, or an estimated total a range of cost estimates. That would be a range of total cost estimates. That might be difficult to do, but I guess if I was a builder, I would look at this and say, oh, okay, I have this house that used to cost me X to build, and now it will cost me X plus Y, or X times a certain percentage increase.
You know, we actually wrestle with that quite a bit, Commissioner Blake, where I think the challenge is so much of this is based on square footage. So if you're building a 900 square foot home versus a 5,000 square foot home, the fee would be quite different. But one thing we did toss around is like a spreadsheet that people could fill in the data, you know, so they knew that they were, for example, in this one, they're going to do hardy siding and composite plastic wood, that they could plug in their square footage in both of those categories, and it would auto-populate like what their anticipated cost would be. I think that might be a great way to help. But to do the range, you know, we debated that for a long time. We just don't know what a person's project is. So it is tough. And again, is it like just their deck that they're redoing here, which is a little bit different than like a full, having to do like the full energy code. But definitely want to, kind of back to Commissioner Giblin, would love to come up with resources so we are helping people who are building new homes or making modifications, that we're helping them to identify the cost. So perhaps, I mean, I guess I would be curious your take if you feel like a spreadsheet of like a plug and play type spreadsheet might meet that interest of knowing how much it would cost.
For me, yeah, I think that sounds like a really good tool. I could see, you know, if I was a builder, I might come up with that myself, but if it was something that the town provided, I think that would probably be very helpful.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely look into that, see what we can pull together.
I think it's important that the homeowner gets that information up front. And again, the builder should be able to provide that, but the town could as well, just to make sure that there are no gotchas down the road.
Right. Well, Matt, I guess I think with there's always a caveat. Like, we can give you tools to say, like, we have a permit generator system in our permitting where we can say, like, this is what we think it's going to cost you. But until we know your project valuation and really the specs and exactly what you're trying to do, we can never definitively say your project will cost blank. So of course, even such a spreadsheet will come with that caveat of, this is just an estimation. It is by no means, and it's just the cost estimates of the changes. Because again, a permit has so many components, we can't even calculate what your taxes would be without knowing project valuations. And so we always have to operate on that kind of parameter of, we can never truly tell you what your permit costs until you pull it.
Well, of course, right. I was just merely trying to make sure that that information to the homeowner, you know, is available, and at least some guidance on things that they might expect as opposed to down the road, all of a sudden find out, oh my gosh, this wasn't expecting this cost for a sprinkler system or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we can prep and you know, a kind of, I do hear Commissioner Giblin in that grace period where if someone pulls a permit on January 2nd, maybe saying like, hey, this is what it is now, you know, and then let us educate you if you were to come forward. This might be what it costs, and have those real-time conversations. And so we'll definitely bring that back to the board, and Commissioner Blakemore, maybe if we are able to, with time, pull together kind of what that spreadsheet might look like for how people could calculate the costs of these amendments.
This
Okay.
is
Sounds
Commissioner.
good. Any other questions before I open it up for the public, if we have a public? Okay, is there anyone? I will now open it up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak? If you do, you have 3 minutes. Please provide your name and address. Okay, having heard nothing, I will close the public hearing or the public hearing portion of this, and we'll bring it back to the Planning Commission to see if there's any other comments or issues that they would like to raise at this point. Again, I believe, Miranda, from what you said, we can still provide some input during September.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, even when that ordinance comes forward, you know, of course, that'll be a public hearing. And if the commission decides that they'd like us to bring back the ordinance, as I said, more than happy to do so.
I personally would like to see the draft ordinance in the next packet, just to review it before it goes to the board, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on Jennifer too, since she has to draft it up probably a little bit earlier for us.
I can do that.
Okay.
It's been on her radar. I feel like for a while, she knows that we know it's coming. So yeah, I think
For
you know,
months.
really the Board of Trustees just asked for kind of a recap. I'm not sure they have much more to add. They just would love to hear what we found in our continued public outreach. And yeah, I do think we could bring that ordinance back to you in September.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Any other comments at this point?
Commissioner Giblin, yeah, thanks. I think bringing it back would be great. Thanks for doing that. And just one thing I would say on Karen's idea, I think it's a good idea. I think the caveat though has to be, you know, expressed, because really, unless the contractor is involved, you know, in a professional, really giving them real costs for things. And Rick had showed us when he first talked about this in the sprinkler systems, like in general, it's going to be more expensive up here than it would be even in Boulder, just because of travel time, and there's not many of those systems going up yet. But those costs likely will fluctuate one way or the other. And you know, just for that one particular line on those sprinkler systems, and then really, you know, the professional will know more about, you know, if you're putting in a flat ceiling versus a vaulted ceiling versus a diagonal ceiling. The actual costs just change so much, you know, every time, or, you know, or just very unique to the project. I'll say it that way. So if you turn out some kind of tool, you really need to be made clear, just so people don't come back at the town and try to hold them liable or something. Like, this thing is very general, and you know, your costs will likely not quite be what it's telling you it's going to say.
Yeah, I'll definitely want to like flag it at the top, but like big red letters, like this is just an estimate. And I guess my thought was like high end, low end. You know, you could be looking at potentially a minimum of blank, but not a maximum. Like, here is kind of your range, depending on your square footage, of what this may cost. I mean, I have to play around with that, what that might look like. You know, if it's not a usable tool or it does create concern or confusion, then of course, we want to go away from that, but oftentimes people contact either me or Cynthia and are like, give me an idea of how much my permit costs. And we can do that in our current system. But always we share, like, do not write a check for this amount by any means. It's just giving you the planning thoughts.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Goodwin. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is great feedback. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, as the PowerPoint says, thank you.
Thank you.
And again,
And visit our website.
yes. Yeah, now it's time to do the commercial, Miranda.
Right? You can contact us no, really, visit our website, though. We do have a fillable form. Of course, you can always email us, but if you have, like, neighbors, like Billy, you were talking about, please direct them to our website. The PowerPoint's there, the feedback form, the ability to sign up to do one-on-ones or group meetings with us. We're more than happy to talk to anyone who wants to know kind of how this plays out. You know, it is hard to have the how does this impact my project type of conversation, but we can navigate those to the best of our ability.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, moving on to the second discussion item. During the last meeting, we had a sort of a discussion. The bylaws came up and a number of us were not really aware of them. So we thought that both Jim and I thought it might be a good plan to bring these up to the entire Planning Commission, particularly for the newer members that haven't seen the bylaws. And we'll have a discussion on those at this point. So Miranda, I assume you will present this item quickly as well?
Yes. Yes. So we have, currently ProSab and SAB are updating their bylaws, and as Chair Williams had noted, it kind of felt like it's an appropriate time for Planning Commission to look at yours as well, so that we can bring them all amendments before the Board of Trustees at one time. So I included the bylaws in the agenda packet, and we have Attorney Madsen here to help guide, you know, if there are any things you feel like are needed for the bylaws. She can help guide kind of the legal side of that and what's appropriate and what may not be appropriate for such a document.
Okay. Attorney Madsen, would you like to follow up on that?
Yes, definitely. Good evening, everyone. So I did review the bylaws, and I think.
Could you speak up? You're very
Sorry.
very
Better?
quiet.
Let me see if I can fix this.
Yeah. Seems like you're in the next room.
Okay, how is this?
Oh, well, excellent.
Good. Okay. So I did review the bylaws that are in your packet, the Planning Commission bylaws. And I would say that the bylaws as they exist right now are very reasonable and appropriate. They are maybe a minimum set of bylaws. And so any recommendation that I would have would be to just add more detail and flesh out these bylaws a little bit more. You know, for one example is removal. There's really no grounds for removal unless somebody is not a town resident. So more detail could be provided there. Another area that could be added to these bylaws, the Board of Trustees has rules of procedure, and in their rules of procedure, they talk about how Planning Commission how quasi-judicial matters are handled. That could be added in. So those are the types of things. If you'd like, I can go over kind of a list of things that I thought could be added. Otherwise, I'm here and available for any questions or thoughts on suggestions.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I'll start off with a couple of comments. Just in reading over the current ones, it looks like there's reference to dates that go back under Article 4 under the terms. It talks about terms expiring, 2 terms expiring every year, which is fine, the staggered, but then there's some dates in there. So obviously it's been a while since this has been updated because it refers to the late 90s. So I don't know, maybe we could do some rewording on those where we don't have to keep updating this quite as often. And then I guess it under Article 3 membership, it talks about, well, it says 8, but then there's 9 residents of the town, so that's just a typo. And 1 such appointed member is appointed by the mayor from the Board of Trustees, and that which is fine. Let's see, what else did I have? With regard to your comment on putting a lot of detail in, I guess I'm a little bit hesitant to do that because the more detail that's in it, the more often it needs to be updated if something changes. So I'm wondering if we could just refer to judicial, let's see, like quasi-judicial matters or rules of speaking, some of the detail that I think you were referring to. We'll see what the other planning commission members think about that. But I guess I'm just a fan of trying to keep this as simple and general as possible because it is more of a strategic document than a tactical, if you will. But I would like to go into some discussion on things like the length of the meetings, maybe how the bylaws are amended, that's sort of the more of the procedural kind of things with regard to the bylaws. And one particular question I had was whether or how this is going to happen. Is this something that you just draft up and then we present it back to the planning commission, or does this have to be, can we just do that without seeing it again, or how's this going to work?
I think if it was Attorney Madsen going in, I guess I'd love to see if we're making changes here and significant changes. So we bring it back to the Planning Commission next month and then have the board adopt them in October. That time frame mirrors ProSab and SAB as well. Not all of them are ready to go before the board. And so October is when this is anticipated for board approval.
Okay. So a question also that I had was, how similar do you think the bylaws should be across all of the commissions and boards? In other words, should there be a template we follow, or can they be individual in nature?
I think that's a great question, and I may turn to Attorney Madsen to see maybe what happens in other municipalities. I would say for ProSab, SAB, and Planning Commission, they're all pretty different.
I don't know that there's one necessarily right way to do it. I do see a benefit to having more of a template format in terms of that's easier for staff that's working with the different boards and commissions, so that staff doesn't have to learn, 3, 4, 5 different sets of bylaws. And then it's also helpful for those community members who would sit on, from time to time, sit on the different advisory boards. I will say that there is some benefit to having the bylaws tailored to the specific needs of that board as well.
Okay. The only other question I had was with regard to officers, Article 8. It says here the deputy town clerk shall serve as the planning commission secretary. Is that true?
I don't think that's happening in practice, so that's definitely something that probably should be changed.
It
Yeah, it
did.
should change the city of.
Yeah, I was originally the deputy town clerk, and previous deputy town clerks had done that. And then my position, my title changed, so we could have changed the language in the document. Going to the planning commission first, but yeah, that should be updated.
Okay, we should, I think we should change that to your current position. Okay, I think I may have some further comments here in a minute, but let's open it up to other commission members for any comments or suggestions at this point.
This is Commissioner Blakemore. I have a couple comments. They're mostly corrections. So Article 6, responsibilities. It lists chapters 16, 17, and 18. However, chapter 18 is not listed in the Netherlands Municipal Code, section 272, which outlines the responsibilities of the Planning Commission. So I'm wondering if we want to keep chapter 18 here or remove that. And I also looked at chapter 18 and there was no reference to the Planning Commission. There was to the zoning board, but the Planning Commission has no responsibilities listed in chapter 18. Chapter 18 is the building code.
That's a good point.
You are correct. And it is not, the building is not the purview of the Planning Commission, although there is interplay of zoning within building, but technically that is under the broader board purview. So you are correct with that. They do mention signs, which is a zoning aspect. And I have been campaigning since I started with the town in 2013 to move signs into chapter 16 zoning and move fences over to chapter 18, but I haven't been successful at my campaign yet.
So would we feel comfortable removing 18 at this point?
I think that's appropriate to move chapter 18 out of this section, especially the way that it's worded, because the Planning Commission is not empowered to implement the provisions of chapter 18. It might be helpful to have a sentence or a phrase that a background knowledge on chapter 18 is helpful for the Planning Commission.
Right, and things like signs, for example, might come under a special review use as well, in which case then the Planning Commission can chime in. So maybe, maybe add a sentence that basically refers to, having a basic knowledge of 18 or something like that, I think might be acceptable. Is that, Karen, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I think that it is a responsibility of the Planning Commission to be knowledgeable about building code, but we do not have the power to make decisions about building code. So yeah, I think it should be removed and possibly another paragraph in there about chapter 18.
So a question to the commission, since we're talking about Article 6, responsibilities, Is that list complete and correct?
I think we should change in, above that list in the second paragraph, the last, 2020, I think we should change to 2030. Envision, so, and to carry out the objectives and goals of the town's comprehensive plan and envision Netherland 2030. Since
Okay.
the Board of Trustees has adopted Vision 2030.
Okay. That makes sense.
But
Again,
Uh-huh.
like in the earlier section, section 4 under terms, we may have to keep changing dates if we want to maintain the wording as it currently is. So for example, initiate staggered terms, 2 terms shall expire in June of each year, or so. Keep it general so that we don't have to keep, changing the dates every time. But the Envision Netherland, I think that one probably should have a date because that's like every 10 years.
So Steve, the way I read that about the dates was that is how the staggered terms were initially set. So back in 1997, the Planning Commission started these staggered terms, and so I'm concerned if we remove the dates, we have terms that we have people leaving before their term's over. And so I'm not sure that the wording would work to remove the dates there. But
Okay.
maybe it's not important to say when these staggered terms were initiated. And maybe that's what you were getting at.
Yeah, that's true. Because when I read that, that doesn't really tell me anything. All it basically says is that, terms are staggered 2 terms are staggered every year.
So I think what we, yes, initiate that 2 terms shall expire. 2 shall expire. Yeah.
How is, maybe a question for Attorney Mattson, how, is there a similar section for the other boards at this point? Is it done in a similar manner, or is it just talk about staggered terms?
Frankly, I'm not sure. I know that the Board of Trustees rules of procedure don't have a similar term provision like this, but I think that we can reword it and remove the dates because just as you said, Chair Williams, these starting dates of 97, 98, and 99 just are not very helpful.
I want to clarify that ProSab and SAB do staggered dates, but it's not like this where it lists the exact year or anything. But they are on a staggered every 3 years, a certain group rolls over.
Right. And I think the staggered dates are fine. I think it's just not a matter of being specific about a particular date, and we can keep it more general like Attorney Mattson says. Okay,
And
any
that's
other,
what's in the-
Karen? Karen, did you have any other comments?
Yes, on the meetings, I'm wondering if we should add the virtual meetings. The first
I'm sorry,
sentence
could you
says-
speak up just a bit more?
Oh, okay, so the meetings state that we're meeting in person at the community center. And so it'd be nice to have the virtual meetings listed as well, either 7 p.m. in the community center or remotely, like we're doing.
Or something like a virtual meeting as required or needed,
Yeah.
something like that?
Virtual meeting. Mhm.
Yeah, as permitted, I think as permitted by the Board of Trustees resolution or something like that, because you're able to meet under the Board of Trustees rule.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's good to put in.
Would this, Billy, would I know we were talking about, at least we threw out the idea of some kind of hybrid option too. Would that have to be spelled out, or could that just be more or less included by what you're saying for the remote?
We could have general language that just says that the meetings may occur as permitted by Board of Trustees resolution.
Okay.
The other, I think it might be helpful here to add that the Planning Commission can meet in a work session and could also hold special meetings.
I thought that was in there, but maybe I'm mistaken. Oh, yeah, it says meetings may be rescheduled for various reasons. Okay, that's fine. Committees. Okay, I guess it's not in there. That's probably a good idea because we do occasionally have special meetings or work sessions. We want to make sure that that is included. And also, Jennifer, in Article 2, Chapter 18 is also mentioned there, so I want to make sure that we get rid of 18 and in all the sections. I think those are the only two.
I will do that.
Okay.
I don't think
Okay.
we want to duplicate.
Other comments?
Oh, so as far as adding things to this, I don't think it's necessary to duplicate the Netherlands Municipal Code nor the Colorado Revised Statutes that apply to the Planning Commission, but maybe just some general items here, you know, like the quasi-judicial proceedings and that go along with that Jennifer mentioned earlier. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Other comments from Planning Commission members? Okay. Let's, well, again, I'm not sure if we have any public, but let's open it up to public comment if anyone wishes to weigh in on this, if anyone from the public is present. Okay. Having heard none, I will close the public comment portion of this discussion item, and we'll bring it back to the Planning Commission for any final comments or suggestions. And then make sure that and then Attorney Madsen, if you have any further questions or suggestions, we could discuss those now.
Well, one of the things that I had thought that you all were considering or had maybe wanted to discuss was the end date or the end time of the meetings. Is there any interest in mirroring the Board of Trustees rules related to ending meetings at 10 unless there's a motion, and then at 11 as a final stopping time.
We'll see what others say. I'm not really sure what that really does as far as, because I mean, all of the meetings that I've attended, it's always been a motion to extend and it's extended and then still the meeting is completed regardless, but we'll see what others have to say.
I think we've had a planning commission that went past 11 p.m. So I'd be in favor of having that hard stop at 11 and then doing the extension at 10. Maybe there's one at 10:30 too for the Board of Trustees. I think that's a good idea because it just gives us a heads up that we need to get things moving to finish by 11.
Okay, any other comments?
I think that's a great idea, and in general, being done by or preferably before 11 is like all of our preference. My only concern would be, I could think of one night when we went to almost 12, and like all that would do is push more stuff into the following month. So I don't know whether the hard stop is needed or if or not.
Yeah,
Well,
or maybe the
personally-
maybe the chair or the vice chair need to wrangle a little bit better. I don't know what the best solution is, but yeah, I mean it's difficult because you want to complete the business without having to continue something due to a time constraint, but on the other hand, you don't want to leave it open either.
I think people are less effective as the meeting, if it drags on. I think people are, well, personally, I'm less focused, less effective in long meetings, especially if they go late into the night.
Right. I mean, one of the tasks that Jim and I have is to look at the agenda with town staff and try to make an estimate on if the meeting is going to go too long and then moving some items or postponing them, accordingly. But of course, a lot of times it's hard to determine exactly how long the discussion will go and how complicated a particular action item might be. So, again, we try our best, but you are correct that the longer the meeting goes, the less effective a lot of the members are.
Commissioner Perret here. May I speak?
Sure, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I'm the one who stepped this whole program into motion back when I was mayor, because I had meetings going till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and everybody was fried after 11. The reason why we made the 10 o'clock cutoff to extend the meeting is to Taylor, who's running the meeting, to Taylor that, okay, you have X amount of time to play in. So then we don't have meetings that go till 11 o'clock. And having every 15 minutes, we put the 15 minutes in caveat that way you can wrap things up in an orderly fashion. Because a lot of us were working and had to get up early in the morning. And when you went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning after a meeting the night before, you were trashed the next day.
No, that's a good point. And so
that's why I've said in the past when meetings have gone long to say that. So if we mirror what the board is doing, then we can tailor our agendas to that factor. And when we're putting the agenda together, I would sit down with Sheridan Garcia, who was the clerk back then, and we would say, all right, this item should take 20 minutes. This item should take 15 minutes. This item will have a lot of public comment. That'll take an hour. And you tailor your agenda to fit in the 7 to 10 parameter.
Well, that's Chris, that's what I was saying earlier. That's what Jim and I do when we sit down with town staff to try to estimate if a meeting is too long or something should be moved, which we've done several times this year already. But your
Okay.
point is a good one, and I don't have any, qualms with mirroring what the Board of Trustees does, because it does seem to work.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Glasser, and I agree with limiting it to 10, and if there are extra agenda items, to vote on it at 10 to extend it, because I think everyone at some point after 3 hours sort of loses the ambition to keep going further. So I agree that we should 10 o'clock, and then if we have things, then we vote to extend it if necessary.
Okay. Well, Jennifer, maybe you could take the verbiage from the Board of Trustees and just put it in here. That should be a simple cut and paste, no?
Yes, I can definitely do that.
I think that's the feeling. Some people haven't spoken up, but it seems like that's the feeling so far. A question to Julian, does that seem to be effective with the Board of Trustees?
Yeah, in that it reminds us that we've got a hard stop, and it certainly has at times allowed the board to say, well, this particular stuff that we were going to go into is all documented fully and everybody can read it, so maybe we skip this part. It allows us to kind of prioritize, especially as we're approaching that 10 o'clock hour.
Okay. Well, hearing no objections, why don't we go ahead and do that, Jennifer? And let's see, what else did we have? Don't see anything else in my notes that I think we should include, other than we've already discussed. Anyone else have any further comments or suggestions? Okay. Having heard none, I think, so the next step then would be to have an amended version of this for the next meeting, is that correct? As an action item?
Yep.
Okay. And so if anyone does wake up at 2 a.m, think of something, I guess they could still provide some input. Does that sound reasonable to everyone?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That concludes our discussion items for this evening. And I guess we'll move on to informational items. We can start off with the town staff report. I assume, Miranda, you'll present that information?
Yes, I will. So in my report, when I interviewed to be the town administrator, I had mentioned that I send out Thankful Thursday messages, which is really just an opportunity to every Thursday celebrate the great things that are going on with staff. And so when it comes to staff accolades, my intention moving forward was to share some of those. So tonight, I just want to really celebrate Jennifer Landon, who's the utility supervisor, and Rita Six, who's our town treasurer. Jen Landon recently passed her Distributions 2 exam, which actually allows her to be able to apply to become the operator in charge of both the water and wastewater facilities. Currently, Chris Pelletier holds those titles after Nicole Brestos left. But Jen just does an impressive amount of work there. I mean, she's always there. She goes above and beyond, but she's also helping to train her team. And I'm happy to report that her direct reports and the operators R2 just kind of cranking in those certifications, and the more exams they pass, the more qualified they are to run these facilities. So just really excited for what that team is doing. And then Rita completed the 2020 audit, which I'm sure you all know is a huge task. Rita's been with us exactly a year now and has done an amazing job just keeping on top of our financial reports.
I've got it on.
She's able to send them out monthly, and there's just a lot that she has done to help make sure that we're in a great financial position and that our reporting reflects that. So happy for her to have completed that audit. Speaking of finance, we are in the midst of budget season. So next month, we will head into the work sessions for budgets, which will be on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday. A little different this year. Normally, we do an in-person public charrette, but this go around, we're actually going to make a YouTube video since we aren't currently doing in person. And in that YouTube video, we will highlight accomplishments of 2021 and some of the goals that the departments are looking to for 2022. So excited to release that on Monday. We will have the draft budget posted and ready for review in October with the goal of having it adopted in November. Some great things, though, is we're continuing to see a sales tax revenue increase. As of last month, we were 17% above budget, and that just continues to grow. And so excess revenue is allowing us to establish a CIP, Capital Improvement Projects Fund, which will go into greater detail with the board as a part of budget, but do encourage any of you who are interested in the budget to attend some of these work sessions. I provided quite a bit of information on COVID, and I won't go through all of it. I just kind of want to hit the highlights that as of a few weeks ago, we were seeing an average of 40.6 cases per day. So there's a continuing trend and rise in number of cases, both COVID cases and potential breakthrough cases for people who've been vaccinated. So seeing that increase. Still a strong desire to get people vaccinated, though. Nederland continues to hover in that 40 to 60% range vaccination status, potentially towards the lower end of that. So we encourage people to attend our vaccination clinics. They are currently happening at the farmers markets now, but people can reach out to Katrina Harms for more information. And then also our COVID testing will continue every Thursday from 4 to 6. The other update I put in here was in regards to indoor mask orders. I really actually didn't have much information when I was putting this together, but we are anticipating that the Board of Health for Boulder County will be issuing an indoor mask order on Monday, requiring, similar to how it was, requiring masks to be used in all indoor spaces. And then also still requiring, even when outdoors, if you can't socially distance, to use masks. I don't have much more information besides that that's likely coming, and we would see that adopted by the Board of Health on Monday. They did, though, a few weeks ago adopt the health order that requires individuals ages 2+, regardless of vaccination status, to mask in school and childcare and other youth activities. And I provide the link to that order.
Miranda, can I ask a question about the
Yeah.
indoor masks? Does that mean that
Sure.
restaurants and bars will be closed?
Yeah, so it won't be closed, but it would be where you would have to wear a mask upon entrance, and then, when eating your food, you could remove them and then put your mask back on when leaving. Again, we don't have a lot of information yet. Of course, enforcement is a big concern for municipalities. The last time we met, that's a lot to put on our police department to enforce, or even our restaurants. And so allowing time for them to be prepared for that change. We have another meeting tomorrow where I'll get a lot more information on the specifics of that order. All I really have as of right now is that it is the desire of the county commissioners to put in effect an indoor mask order.
Okay, thanks.
And we too, as I noted in here, obviously Boulder County does, Mayor Larson has expressed that Nederland will follow suit and match mirror those Boulder County health orders. Redistricting, for those of you who know, there was a hearing about redistricting Nederland and kind of the peak-to-peak area. He went and testified, and I provided his letter in this staff report. it seems like the sentiment is that we will remain within our congressional district, but he will continue to keep us updated as they work on finalizing their maps. The redistricting was really interesting. If you looked at the map, it actually, Nederland was kind of split amongst two districts. They didn't follow our jurisdictional boundaries. So I know that added some complexity, but it sounds like it's probably highly likely we'll stay within the 2nd Congressional District. I actually realized that I left this niche update in here, and I went over it last month. So again, they're still doing great work. At the recent Board of Trustees meeting, Trustee Coombs
Can I ask one question
on the
redistricting? What was, and I didn't have a chance to read his letter yet, but what were the biggest pros and cons of redistricting?
I think for Nederland, one of the biggest ones is that we would lose Congressman Neguse as our representative, and he's done so much for Nederland, is very committed to our mountain community. Big Springs is a big piece of that. Obviously, he's running the egress as one of his top projects. And so I think for us, we have that established relationship, and he often advocates for small mountain communities. We would be moved to a district that may not have those same values. And I think for Mayor Larson in this letter, that's really what he outlines, is just the ties that we already have within that relationship we already have.
Since I wanted Big Springs. Okay, thanks.
So Niche, again, great work. Trustee Coombs Ismail did recently highlight that he was at a campsite that appears to be trashed, both with physical trash and then feces and human waste. So communicated that to Henry. He was incredibly responsive, went up there with his team, and is looking for feedback. If you know of places, campsites that need support and need to be looked into, he's more than happy to work with his team to support whoever is camping there or to assist with cleanup if it's been abandoned. We are in a peer exchange group, which is in essence where we've been networked with other communities who have like interests to just work on what is our resiliency plans, what is our recovery plans. We've only been connected at this point in time with Estes Park and Gunnison, who are actively moving forward with that. But it is nice to connect with them to understand what their needs are, what their resources are, potential funding opportunities, and it's great to have that connection on a larger scale and seeing what they're dealing with. So we've had our first kickoff meeting on Monday, and we'll have quite a few more. We have our kickoff meeting for this next week. We had our kickoff meeting on Monday for the Roadmap to Recovery project, which again, we are a part of the Clear Creek County team. So it's Lyons, Nederland, Clear Creek County, Estes Park, and a few other municipalities and in those regions. And we will work on our recovery plans, focused around everything ranging from housing to the digital divide to transportation, community engagement, just all the things that really need to be enhanced. And we get to work directly with state professionals and their partnership teams on best strategies for moving forward. We have some special events coming up. We have the Ned foot race on the 11th, the Bus Classic on the 12th of September, Heritage Fest, which is kind of a small-scale Miners' Day from the Historical Society on the 19th, and then Harvest Fest is happening, which is the farmers market kind of last big hoorah. Many of you know last month we did do the bike race, Ned Gravel Bike Race, which is the first large event we've had in probably 18 plus months. We got a lot of feedback, and so there were some lessons learned. But all in all, I think it was a very successful event, and we look forward to partnering with them next year. Update on town clerk. We have hired a deputy town clerk. So I received 4 applications for the role, and they were all pretty green or new to the field of clerking. So we decided in collaboration with Mayor Larson that it made sense to bring on a deputy town clerk and work on training them and transitioning them into the role of town clerk over the next 6 to 9 months. So Macy Caligaris, who is already a town staff member with the Parks Department, was offered the job, and she will start on Monday. She is a local member, lives in Old Town, just very organized, very methodical. I think those are important things for a clerk, and I'm confident she'll do well in the role. So I'm sure I'll bring her around to a planning commission meeting at some point. But I will maintain on paper the title of town clerk, but I really will be passing the duties on to her and getting her up to speed on fulfilling that role. And as always, I like to do a public works update. They can always speak to it better than I can, but really, if you haven't been to Gershio and the Barker Meadow Park area, I strongly encourage you to go over there. They've done a ton of work. It looks amazing, building trails around the site and getting ready for the artscape, which is this large nest wooden playscape. So kudos to Public Works. So they kind of had a late start because we were working on the site plan for a long time, and over the last 6 weeks, they've done a ton of work. They actually had 60 youth involved this summer. And so the hours between them and our temp employees and Nikki Dunn and the whole Public Works team is probably the majority of their summer tasks. And I'm really excited to see how that's coming along. And that's our report.
Okay, well, thank you.
I guess one other thing, Karen's farewell party. Karen's farewell party is on Thursday the 2nd. I created a little buffer in case you didn't RSVP but want to come. It's from 3 to 5 at Chipeta. We'll have just some appetizers, hors d'oeuvres. It'll be a great time to say farewell. Her last day is the 3rd. So I know she'll be excited to see people if they can come. And we're trying to do it in an outdoor setting so we can all spread out. But I hope you'll join us.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I was going to bring that up under other business, but thank you. Okay, any questions on the staff report? Thanks, that's a great, please continue to provide that. It's very complete and informative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Good
This
job,
is
Miranda.
Commissioner Blakemore. I just wanted to mention to Miranda that the gazebo in Chipeta Park is in need of repair. I don't know if that's on the radar of Public Works.
I don't know, but I will be actually seeing Nikki early in the morning. And when you say, is it just like starting to fall down? When you say needs work, what am I looking at exactly? I haven't been over there.
The roof has holes in it.
Okay.
And one step is broken off.
Okay. I will let them know.
Okay, thanks.
On a related question, Miranda, so when people reserve and pay for, renting the gazebo, does that money go into a special fund to do such repairs, or does it go into a general town fund?
Yeah, I mean, people often aren't doing the gazebo, they're doing kind of Chipeta as a whole, but it does go into the clerk's budget. Now that's just a part of the general fund. And so it's not necessarily offsetting anything in particular. It would be parks budget that could use, though, the park rental funds.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure whether the funds went into the parks or not directly, but.
Yeah, it just goes into the clerk budget. But, and I'm not entirely sure how Nikki wants to handle the gazebo. She has her own budget to deal with repairs. Of course, we all know it's very small, but she does have, just on a bigger parks conversation, they do actually have access to the money Tungsten Village paid in Eldora to the tune of almost like $150,000 that can be used for park and trail maintenance. And we do anticipate that ProSab in the near future will start to discuss best ways to use those funds. But one option could be the Wingate properties. Over there, we're being gifted in the future, once we sort out kind of all the paperwork, potentially 10 acres of property that really needs to be mitigated. But there are funds, and we'd love to hear from people if you have thoughts of what we could use that for. Email myself or the ProSab team, because they're probably going to start that conversation next month.
Okay. Sounds good. Cynthia, did Jim Reese ever join us?
Have been typing away and I did not, I haven't been on this screen, but I don't see that he has joined us, no.
Okay, all
No,
right,
he is not.
all right. Just wanted to double check. Any other business to bring up by anyone or town staff?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, it is
That's
well
my other
before
business.
10. Well before 10, Chris,
Okay.
and I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, thank you. Who seconds?
Who's the second? I'll second that.
Okay. Good job, everybody.
Okay, thank you,
Aye.
everyone. Enjoy
You
the
too.
rest of the summer.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Meeting meeting is adjourned at 8:32 PM.
Okay,
Good
thank
job.
you, everyone.
Everybody
night.
have a good week.
Everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.